Hey guys, here we go. Chapter 15, Section 3. We're going to talk about natural gas. Now, natural gas, primarily we're talking about methane. So this is an organic compound. Obviously, we're talking about fossil fuels here, and it is a greenhouse gas. We're talking about it, once again, mostly methane, but we're also talking about propane, butane, and then there are some hydrogen sulfides that wind up being mixed in these as well. Natural gas has a medium net energy yield, and it has fairly low production costs, making it very desirable. It burns cleaner than coal or oil. So the fact, when we burn methane, we don't get black smoke coming off, billowing out. We're not releasing as many hydrocarbons, the carbons into the atmosphere. So this is very beneficial. We extract it by horizontal drilling. We find natural gas in pockets above the oil. It's kind of the vapors, in a sense, that sit over the oil. And we also get it by fracking, the horizontal drilling and, vertical drilling and then horizontal drilling to get into these areas, pumping it full of the water, sand, and chemicals to fracture those gaps and then pull the gas out. So anyway, from it we will get liquefied petroleum gas, LPG. Kind of like what you go to Lowe's, Home Depot, Publix, wherever you might go, and you get your LPG tanks, like for barbecuing, anything of that nature, gas-powered grills. LPG. Now we use LPG for lots of stuff. We use LPG here at school. We use our Bunsen burners. But liquefied petroleum gas. This we can store in pressurized tanks. So we will liquefy it, a lot of times cooling it, putting it under pressure, putting it in the tanks, easy to transport. And then we have liquefied natural gas, LNG. Typically what you're going in the propane tank, liquefied petroleum, but then also liquefied natural gas as well. These can be easily transported across oceans, but these have a lower net energy yield. Once again, taking more energy to take it from a gas stage, put it into a liquid stage, transporting it, and then reconverting it back into the gas stage. The United States is currently exporting natural gas into other countries, one of our definitive exports. Now, when we talk about natural gas, as all of these energy sources, they all come with advantages, they come with disadvantages. So let's look specifically at natural gas. Well, first off, ample supplies. There's still a lot of it in the ground to just pull out. Once again, medium cost. Medium cost is pretty good. High is what we're after. We've already got most of the really high, the very easy to get. It's a versatile fuel. We can use it for all kinds of things. Whether we use it for cooking, we use it for heating. It's used to power vehicles. Remember when I worked at UPS, this was years ago, a lot of our trucks ran on LPG. It emits less CO2 and other air pollutants than the other fossil fuels. Once again, it burns cleaner, making it a definitive benefit. Some of the disadvantages, especially when you start getting into the liquid gases, it gets a lower net energy. It takes energy to liquefy it, so that's a bit of a downside. The production and delivery is going to release more CO2 and CH4. It is very difficult to get a natural gas out of the ground without some of it leaking out, either through the gaps in the ground that we make, through our pipes, whatever it is. And methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. The fracking that we use to get it, this is how we're getting our large quantities of it now. The fracking uses lots of water because we're having to put it down, pump it in, and then the water that we're pulling out now is heavily polluted. So we're using lots of water to do it, and then that water that we get back out is polluted. We have to store that some way. A lot of times it's polluted with radioactive and very heavy elements, and that has to be stored. And just the potential for groundwater pollution from fracking. Once we push this all down, we frack, we damage those areas, the cracks, then that water can leak out, get into our groundwater, and contaminate other water sources. When we talk about this, going into the disadvantages, fracking is just one of these disadvantages, if you will. Talking about the environmental side effects. Fracking has been incredibly beneficial from an economic standpoint. It's allowed us to create jobs, get natural gas from places we previously couldn't get it, but it does come at an environmental cost. First off, like we already mentioned, it requires enormous volumes of water. We have to, under high pressure, pump this water and chemicals down deep into the ground, then we pull it out, and then we're taking the oil, natural gas out of it when we're pumping it back up. It produces hazardous wastewater, and then we have to store this wastewater. The best one is drilling very deep wells. We took it out of that area, dig a deep well, and store the water there. Well, of course, if we have any earthquakes or fractures, things in the ground, that can break up those wells, and then that water can leak out into our water sources again. Failure of this well casing cement. When we do that, if the cement that we're putting in fails, same thing, it can leak in. And we're trying to come up with solutions that can last for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and it's very hard to do that. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen geologically in a region 50 years from now, much less 1,000 years from now. So these are just problems and issues. Then if we're storing it up on the land, of course, we can get the same kind of failures. If something breaks, then it can leak out. Natural gas fracking has been excluded from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency's regulations in 2005. So we really don't have as many regulations on it. Regulations are necessary for control, or at least have an idea of what's happening. We don't know how much methane is being released from the fracking or how much waste is out there. It's hard to track some of the problems, and it takes us back to some of our full cost pricing. We're just paying for the cost to get it out. We're not really paying the cost of a lot of the environmental damage, which we're going to have to pay for eventually. It's kind of like taking it on credit, if you will. Now, natural gas and the climate. Once again, advantages, disadvantages to it. It emits less CO2, carbon dioxide, per unit of energy than coal. So this is a good thing. The lower price could slow a shift into other renewable energy sources, which is not good. Since it's cheaper right now, we don't want to put money into renewables, like getting our solar technology better, wind technology better, and exploring some other avenues of getting energy from the ocean, other ways, which right now are alternative. They're not mass scale. And we're not going to put as much money into researching something new when we have something currently that's fairly cheap. So the fact that we've been able to, by fracking, make it cheaper, it's cutting down on money that we would spend on other renewables, getting the technology better. Methane, as we have already mentioned, is a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. So it's good that when we burn it, it doesn't release as much CO2. But the downside is any of it that leaks out of the ground, leaks out of the pipes, or just escapes, even you turn on the stove, it's on for a little bit before you light it. So when it's on for a little bit, that's releasing methane into the air. Methane is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2, so this is a danger with it as well. The drilling, production of it, distribution, and then once again, even us using it releases ultimately very large quantities of methane. So this comes as a concern as well. Well, this wraps it up for natural gas, a little bit of what it is, where it comes from, the advantages and disadvantages. Next time, come back and we'll talk about coal.